Hello and welcome to Face Off here on France 24. I am a Gaullist and I am a Christian. This is how the conservative candidate for the presidential election, François Fillon, defines himself. But by wearing his religion on his sleeve, the favorite for next May's election is entering uncharted territory for the deeply secular French political class. Also this week on the menu, the first of 3 debates within a week between the candidates for the Socialist primary to designate their own presidential hopeful. With me to discuss those 2 items, Philippe Turle from Radio France Internationale and Jean-Marc Gonin with the Figaro magazine. So by going on primetime television and claiming that he's not only a Gaullist but also a Christian, François Fillon was eager to explain that his presidential platform was not as free market oriented as its critics claim. But by putting forth his faith, he unleashed a wave of reactions all across the aisle. So let's first take a listen to François Fillon and then we'll discuss some reactions.
I'm a Gaullist and furthermore a Christian. It means that I will never take a decision that would run counter to the respect of human dignity, the respect of the individual, and solidarity.
So this declaration was met by lots of criticism from all across the aisle, as I said. Here is what the former Prime Minister, the former Socialist Prime Minister, Manuel Valls, had to say in an interview with the daily Le Parisien. For the first time, a politician called his program Catholic. To call one's program Catholic, quote unquote, goes against who we are. It creates division. This was a reaction from the left. Now let's take a listen to a reaction from a center-right candidate and the leader of the far right, Marine Le Pen.
I am a believer. I'm not going to be offended by a statement of faith. But how could you mix politics and religion like this, in such an inappropriate way? In France, as a matter of principle, we don't mix politics and religion.
How are we going to fight community divisions if we go down that road? How are we going to protest against those who will go into politics in the name of religion, in the name of Islam? For example, if Mr. Fillon uses that kind of speech.
Jean-Marc Gonin, unusual statement for a politician. He went on the nightly newscast here in France, so he probably thought about this. Is this maybe a risk when you see all the reaction, or is this maybe a new reality in France?
I doubt it could be a new reality. I think it's a kind of false step. As many of those politicians we've seen have underlined, this is something that is very un-French, even today, I think. And when you look at François Bayrou, who is, and he says it, a believer, he's never hidden his Catholic faith, but he's never put it forward as an argument for campaigning to get a mandate. But François Fillon, I think, is a bit prisoner of his constituency, in the sense that he won the primaries, attracting to himself the Catholic vote strongly. When François Hollande a few years ago put forward the gay marriage law, there was a huge protest from the ranks of French Catholics, and those people now are a kind of constituency. And Fillon was intelligent enough to get these votes on his name, and that's how probably he won the primary. So he's a bit now prisoner of those votes.
Do you agree, Philippe, that maybe it's a way for Fillon to maybe solidify this constituency, but he's taking a risk because it's a taboo in France, basically, to say I'm Catholic or I'm Jewish or I'm Muslim, and this is why I'm taking some policy decisions?
I think you have to put this in a wider perspective. There's 2 ways of looking at it. The first way is that, as Jean-Marc was saying, François Fillon won the support of the traditional Catholic community in France, and they all massively voted for him during the right-wing primaries last year, and he won those primaries to become the candidate for the right-wing Republican Party in the election, the presidential election in May. So that he has acquired that support from that part of French society, and I don't really think he has much to worry about because they'll all vote again for him during the presidential election. I think that in this, if you look at that interview that he was doing on French television, he was asked at one moment, because he's been losing a bit of steam in his presidential campaign, because he's said he's going to do away with 500,000 civil servant jobs, he's going to increase VAT by 2%. And many people are saying, well, that was fine to say that during the primaries, but when he's actually running for a candidate in the election in France, that's going to seriously cheese off all those who didn't want to vote for him in the right-wing primary. So he's going to have to backpedal a little bit or soften his stance. And he was saying, no, I'm not someone who's going to backpedal. I'm going to go ahead with what I said I'm going to do. I'm a Catholic, and I stand by my word. I think you can put it more into that situation. The problem is that, as all the other politicians have rightly said, once you start saying I'm a Catholic, you're going to seriously divide France, where you've got 5 or 6 million Muslims living here, the largest community in Europe. And there's a large Jewish community as well, which is one of the biggest in Europe. So that's obviously not going to enchant those people to want to vote for François Fillon afterwards.
Quickly, and not only in his own camp.
Within his own
people
camp,
are shocked by the fact that he's put forward his
someone was saying in his own camp today, if he says it again, then politically he is dead ahead of that presidential
election. Well, maybe there's also, Philip mentioned the Muslim community, maybe he's saying this because he's fishing for far-right votes by saying, I'm a Christian, this means I'm going to be strong against radical Islam, for instance.
Well, that's not what he said. Again, he said this in the context of being not that hard on poor people in the country. That's what he meant. And in the Catholic Church, who has been protective of weak people. That was his point. But he might as well go the way you're mentioning, Mark. He has not done it yet, but it might be a way to try to increase his support. But it's a very, very dangerous.
And one other thing, which I think is also important, is that François Fillon's never made any bones about the fact that he is a Catholic, and that's already worried a lot of people in France who were for example, same-sex marriage, and are worried that if François Fillon becomes president, he might try to do away with subsidies for abortion and all those kinds of things.
He said he wouldn't do it.
He said he wouldn't do it, but with remarks like that on television, it still leaves uncertainty.
There's still a doubt. Second item on the menu, the primary, the socialist primary. We'll take a look at a poll taken recently in round 1 of this primary. There are 7 candidates, but basically there are only 4 main candidates. The outgoing Prime Minister Manuel Valls would arrive ahead in round 1, ahead of 2 of François Hollande's former minister, Arnaud Montebourg and Benoît Hamon, not very far, and another former minister, Vincent Payon, further down the lane. But in round 2, that's the most interesting part of the poll, Arnaud Montebourg would win over Manuel Valls. Jean-Marc Gonin, it seems it's a wide open race. No one knows how many people will go and vote, and no one knows the winner.
Yeah, the first point is important for those primaries. You don't know
turnout.
How many the turnout. So those polls are you can have doubts. We've seen it with the Conservative last year. So I think the Socialists, it's even more of a doubt because, well, the head of the chairman of the party has said, I expect 2.5 million people coming to the polls, but some say it won't. It will be 1 million at most. So this will change a lot because you have people who are really motivated, especially those who are more radical on the left, are more motivated than those who would be there for Manuel Valls. But in any case, the figures as we see, the numbers as we've seen them, are extremely worrying for Manuel Valls. He is the successor of François Hollande, in the sense that François Hollande gave up. So he represents the line of the governing socialist, and he's not taking off.
Right, and Arnaud Montebourg, who was a minister and who resigned, saying he disagreed with the so-called pro-market policies of François Hollande, is gaining some ground, as well as Benoît Hamon, who's also towards the left. So there's a real possibility of a fight and maybe even a split for the socialists, who are already in a very, very difficult position.
Well, that's a bit of an understatement. Unfortunately, the Socialist Party is sort of on its last legs, and whatever happens in these primaries, whether it's Arnaud Montebourg or Manuel Valls or even Benoît Hamon, none of those candidates has a chance of winning the presidential election afterwards. And I don't think any of those candidates even has a cat in hell's chance of getting into the second round of the voting. So that's also another reason that people won't turn out to vote in those primaries, because they say, well, who we vote for is not even going to stand a chance of winning the presidential election. Why would we want to go out and pay €1 on a Sunday to go and vote for a candidate who's going to lose? So the best case scenario is that one of those candidates, let's say Arnaud Montebourg, wins the primary. He can get 4th or 5th position in the presidential election, which means he won't even get through to the second round. So what's going to happen to the Socialist Party? On one side, you have another former minister, Emmanuel Macron, who's running as an independent. On the other side, you have another former member of the Socialist Party, who is Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who's also running as an independent. Mélenchon is on the far left. Emmanuel Macron is on the centre-right, or the centre-left, if you like. So if people are going to vote for example, Manuel Valls, and he loses, some of those voters will go off and give their votes to Emmanuel Macron. If people vote for example, Arnaud Montebourg, and he loses, and it's Manuel Valls who wins, then those voters will go off and give their votes to Jean-Luc Mélenchon. So it's going to be virtually impossible for any of those candidates to win a substantial majority to have any chance of getting through to the second round of the election, and that poses a big question on the future of France's Socialist Party.
Well, we'll see if that primary actually matters. We'll be following the debates, 3 debates within a week here on France 24, and we'll see you next week to discuss it.